Hi, I'm Nathan. This is Nice at Dice. Thanks for watching. Would you and your friends like to be spacefaring scoundrels like Han Solo, the crew of Serenity, or even the Guardians of the Galaxy, risking everything to pull off a heist or save the world? Well, you can in Never Tell Me the Odds, the Space Scoundrel RPG about risking it all by David Somerville. I'm going to show you a little bit about how this game is played, and then I'm going to tell you why this might be the next role-playing game that you and your friends should try. Let's start by taking a look at a character sheet for Never Tell Me the Odds. At the top of the character sheet, we have our character's name. In this example, a human smuggler named Jack Flint. Then you have a concept, and the concept is basically just a brief description of who this character is to help you with role-playing, and also to help you work through the process of creating a character. So for our example, the concept is a down-on-his-luck smuggler who's gotten himself out of more than a few scrapes. Then you're going to choose a species for your character. In this case, we've chosen human. Humans get no modifications to their abilities, but just to give you an idea of what selecting a species can mean, generally speaking, most species are better at one thing and worse at another. Then you have your specialty, which you might think of as your profession, although it may not necessarily be what your character does for a living. And your specialty, like in this case, smuggler, just makes you better at one thing. So being a smuggler means that Jack Flint is better at deceiving authorities. Then we get into really the meat of a character, which is 6 values listed as high, medium, or low. So these are 6 things that this character values. The values are always the same in that you always have a belief, a physique, a possession, a relationship, a reputation, and a resource. But for each character, you can order those values differently, depending on what you think this character would value most. Then over here, we see that we have, for each value, what is called a factor, and it's basically just a description of what that value represents specifically for this character. So for example, Jack Flint has his highest value a reputation, and his specific reputation is less innocent than he looks. His other high value is a possession, and for him, that's a trusty blaster pistol. You also have a relationship, a resource. In this case, his resource is another person he can call on for help, but his relationship is always a person, in this case a former business partner of his. Then you have a belief, which is always presented as a quote from the character. In his case, I'll believe it when I see it. And then you have physique, and something that describes basically the physique of the character. In this case, he has a completely forgettable appearance. Now, what the purpose of these values are is whenever you want to accomplish something in the game, you have to risk something that your character values. Now, you can use any value to try and accomplish anything as long as you can justify that what you're doing somehow risks that value. So, for example, if Jack Flint gets into a shootout in a bar, he would likely want to make use of his possession, his trusty blaster pistol. So we could say he's risking it in the sense that maybe this fight will deplete all of his ammo. He won't be able to use his blaster anymore after this point. Maybe he will drop his blaster, it'll get broken, it'll overheat. In some way, he's possibly risking it in this situation. So once we've established what he is risking, and whether it's a high, medium, or low value, then the risk moderator, which is what this game calls, what most games would call a game master or a GM, the risk moderator will determine what is the level of risk involved in the thing that Jack Flint is attempting. So, say it's a fight in a bar, we could say, well, maybe he's outnumbered, but the people he's fighting are poorly armed, so maybe that's just a medium risk. So he's pitting his trusty blaster pistol which is a high value, against a medium risk. Now, down here in this corner of the character sheet, we have what's called the risks and results matrix. And I'll see if I can give you a slightly better look at that. So since he's comparing a high value against a medium risk, he is what's called going over. So now he's going to roll a die, and he's going to see whether he rolls an even or an odd. So you can really use any die for this game, as long as it has an even number of even and odd numbers on it, right? So like a 12-sided die, for example, is what I have here, and we'll see what we get. So in this case, we rolled a 2. That's an even result, and an even result when you're going over means success. If he had rolled an odd number, he would have still had success, but he would have endangered his value. And we track endangering a value simply by checking one of these little hexagons over here, right? So something like that. So now he's risked his trusty blaster pistol. He's succeeded, right? So if he was trying to shoot one of his assailants, then he succeeded in shooting them, and the risk moderator will narrate the results of that. But he did, if he rolled odd, he did also endanger that. If he were to risk it again at a later time and endanger it again, then he would check the second one and it would be lost. So now he has lost that possession. He can't use it again for the rest of the game. Let's say in another situation, he is in the same fight, in the same bar, but his resource, Ms. J, a celebrity and childhood friend, happens to have been meeting him there to loan him some money. And so now there's a possibility that she could get hurt in the fight, or she might get caught on camera, and it'll get out that this celebrity was in this bar with some scoundrels. It could damage her reputation. In any case, he might be risking that resource because she may not be so quick to offer him help again. So the player, even though he's not using her specifically in this fight, he could still say, that's the value I want to risk in this situation. So now he'd be comparing a medium value to a medium risk, and that is what's called here a match. So again, he would roll, but on an even, he would succeed. On an odd, he would fail and endanger. So not only would he fail to get in that shot, he'd probably take a couple of punches to the face, and he's endangering that resource. He's endangering his ability to call on her for help. If in the same situation, same fight, still a medium risk, he decides, well, I'm just going to go for an all-out brawl. I'm going to be risking my physique, my completely forgettable appearance. Well, now he's going under. So when you go under, if you roll an even, you succeed, but you still endanger. And if you roll an odd, you fail and you completely lose it, even if it hadn't already been endangered. So again, you could sort of justify that with the narrative, saying that maybe if you succeed, well, I fought off my assailants, but they got a few good licks in, and now my appearance may not be so completely forgettable because I'm walking around with a black eye everywhere I go. In any case, that's basically the bulk of the mechanisms of the game right there. That's how the game operates. You just move from one event to the next, like you would in most RPGs. When the players want to accomplish something that seems like it might carry with it some risk, they need to basically wager one of their values against the risk of trying to do that, and then you roll a die and you see what result you get, even or odd, and that tells you whether you succeed, whether you fail, whether or not you endanger or lose those values. Now, of course, as you play, you're going to be checking off a lot of these values. There is a mechanism for restoring some of these values after you've endangered or lost them, but you will find over the course of the game that you are losing access to more and more of your values, which is sort of creates sort of this spiral of chaos as you play, where the stakes get progressively higher because you have already lost a lot, and so every new thing that you risk really puts you on the ropes. So let's take a look at the physical book As you can see, it's a very beautiful hardcover. It's also available as a paperback or a PDF. The book has really nice artwork throughout. As you can see, you have these 2-page full-color spreads of art at the beginning of the book and at the beginning of each chapter. Throughout the book, you have nice layout. The text is easy to read, easy to digest. You have helpful sidebars explaining different things, more beautiful full-color art. You have a lot of black and white illustrations throughout the book. Most of them, I believe all of them are from the same illustrator, so you have a consistent look throughout. One thing that's worth noting, you have this chapter, How to Play, and it consists of really just 4 pages of rules, and this outlines how to make those checks that I described a minute ago, determining the risk of a situation, choosing a value that you're going to risk on the situation, and then making those rolls and determining the results. And then you have a chapter on situational rules. That is just 2 pages of additional rules. So really all the rules of the game are contained in about 6 pages of content. Then you have a chapter called Scoundrel Tools, which goes into creating your scoundrels. It allows you to choose from 6 different species: human, cyborg, robot, android, sentient animal, and alien. And apart from the human, who has really no rules modifications for being a human, all of the other species basically just have something like this, which tells you that you're better at mechanics and worse at empathy if you're a cyborg, for example. Or the android, who is better at high society and worse at sustaining damage. The rest of this whole page about androids is really just some examples of possible factors to go along with your values. You can choose from these lists, but you don't have to. You can make up any values and factors you want for your character. But that's basically what this whole page is. It's just examples. And obviously, if you choose alien, there's going to be more than one type of alien, most likely. So what they do is they provide you with 6 different types of aliens. But again, each of those types of aliens is pretty generic, and they each just provide one thing that you're good at, one thing that you're bad at. And again, when it comes to the species, they pretty much tell you if none of these species fit your concept for your character, you can really call your character whatever kind of species you want. Just give them something they're better at and something they're worse at. Then you have specialties. These are like your profession. They have 12 different specialties listed, from bounty hunter, burglar, gunslinger, heartbreaker, smuggler, swindler, etc. And for each of these, they just give you one thing that that specialty is better at, and then some questions that you might ask yourself to really get into the idea of who this character is and how to roleplay them. But not a lot of additional rules for that. Then you have a chapter, Moderator Tools, and this is for the risk moderator. It gives some general advice about setting up the game, about how to construct the stories, and then it goes into different factions that might exist in the universe that you're telling the story in. They tell you you can certainly use any existing universe. You could set this game very easily in the Star Wars universe. You could make it in something like Guardians of the Galaxy or the universe of Firefly. But if you want to do it in an original, or I should say unconnected to any of those franchises, you could use the suggested factions that they have here. And again, for each of these pages, they don't really add any new rules for any of these factions. They just give some examples of characters you might meet while interacting with these factions, places you might visit, jobs that you might get in relation to these factions, either jobs that the faction might hire you to do or jobs that you might be hired by someone else to do against this faction, and so forth. And then when you get to the very end of the book, you have the character sheet that you can make copies of. And that's it. The whole book is about 72 pages, and again, just about 6 pages of actual rules. The rest is just a little bit of advice and a lot of information to draw from for inspiration in how you create your characters and tell their stories. So hopefully that gives you some pretty good idea of what you're getting with Never Tell Me the Odds. Obviously, it's a very beautiful product, well laid out. The artwork is great. I like that the rules are very simple. They're very easy to read and digest and internalize. Having played it a few times now, I feel like I have very little need to even refer to the rules anymore because they're just that straightforward. Now, that's not to be down on games that are more complex when it comes to the rules, because I enjoy that too, but I think for what this is, it is a very nice rule set. It's basically a game specifically tailored to telling stories about your space scoundrels who are on the run, on the ropes. Things get progressively worse for them as the story goes by. The odds are never in their favor, and hopefully in the climax they can pull off a big win. And so for telling those kinds of stories, I think the rule set here is very well tailored to that, and it's perfectly sufficient for dealing with those kinds of situations. One of the things specifically that I like about the rule set is that it doesn't have the RM or the GM making any rolls themselves. All the rolls are made by the players. And what I like about that is it takes basically all of the mechanical burden of the game off of the person running the game and allows me, if I'm running the game, to simply focus on where the story is going, focus on the people at the table, and making sure everybody is having fun and the story is headed somewhere exciting. And I like that. I like the freedom that that gives me to shift my focus to those that aspect of the game. Now, again, I've played this a few times now. I've really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. I backed this game when it was on Kickstarter last year. It cannot be found in any of your typical retailers. To my knowledge, I've looked, I haven't been able to find it. The only place you can buy it now is on a website called drivethrurpg.com. That's through spelled THRU. So drivethrurpg.com. On there you can buy it as a hardcover like this, as a soft cover, and as a PDF. And so if you're interested in trying this, you could even get a PDF of it today for just a few dollars and be playing it by the weekend if you like. So definitely highly recommend it. Great job by David Somerville designing it and putting together the whole package. And yeah, definitely recommend it. So again, my name is Nathan. You're watching Nice at Dice. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.